Hello and welcome back to the final Stakehouse Strategy episode before the start of the 2025 Premier League season. I'm sure there will be more to come at other stages, but this concludes your six-pack of episodes to ensure that you have everything that you need. I'm Conor McCabe, joined once more by Lucas Dazinski, and today we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of people like to turn up their nose at, but in actual fact, a very serious metric that you should be utilizing if you're serious about making money. It's something that Lucas is very serious about, and I'm going to hand over to him pretty quickly here to talk all about XG and what it is, how he uses it, and even show us an example. Lucas?
Yeah, so what is XG? I guess there's a lot of debate. I think it's more swaying towards XG being a good thing. There's a lot of old school pundits who are slating it, but I think they're just a bit dinosaurs in my opinion. But even Sky Sports, even at halftime, etc., they start showing XG as well, just to give another indication of how the game's performing. So ultimately, XG is a prediction of how likelihood the shot is of going in. So, for example, a penalty might be an XG of like 0.8. That means there's an 80% chance of that goal being scored. Whereas, if you have a shot outside the area, it might be an XG of like 0.03, right? The reason why it's important for betting and why I use it, because it gives you a better indication of how the game played out. So, for example, a team might be getting smashed and they ended up winning the game, right? But they haven't really created many chances. So on paper, if you look at the score, they might have won 1-0, but in reality, they got quite lucky. And what that means for betting is that the market may undervalue teams who are underperforming their goals. So what I mean that they're creating a lot of chances, but they're not converting, right? And I know you mentioned this a lot. It's down to the finishers, etc. But at some point, like there's going to be a game or two or a few games where stuff clicks for them and they're starting to finish some games, right? So it's important to understand that aspect. So I'll go through an example.
Just breaking it down in an even simpler way, so people understand how a team's XG is calculated. So with every single shot that happens, that's where your XG comes from. So a shot can be from absolutely anywhere, and every shot will be assigned an XG of between 0.01 and 0.99. It can never be over 1 because nothing's over more than a shot can never yield more than one goal. So effectively, it comes somewhere in that bracket, depending on the likelihood of it being a good scoring opportunity. As you say, things like penalties are much more likely than shots from way out.
Yeah.
And then a team's XG is calculated. Let's suppose they have 3 shots in the game. 2 of them are penalties at 0.8, so that equals 0.79, I think, right? So that equals 1.58. And then maybe another shot from miles out, which is 0.03. So that 1.58 plus 0.03 equals 1.61. So a team's overall XG for that game might be 1.61, but maybe all 3 of those shots went in, right? And the team wins the game 3-0. And then what that will, as you say, cause bookmakers to do is skew their odds for the next game on the belief that they won that game more comfortably than they actually did.
Yeah, it's a good example here, which I'm sure you'll like.
Oh, here we go.
Any idea what which game I'm going to show?
I hope it's not the Liverpool. It's going to be Brentford United of some sort. I'm hoping you're not going back to the 4-0 last season, but that's...
No, it's a much... I don't think that's a good example because we smashed your XG as well. Hope people remember this game.
I was at this game, actually.
Yeah. So, obviously...
Again, just before you dive into this, just to note, again, if you can get to a computer, we are broadcasting live, and we'll make it a lot easier for you to gain more of an understanding if you can watch as well as listen, but we'll, of course, try and explain as clearly as possible as well.
Yeah, so Footbob's a really good website to use for scores and, most importantly, expected goals, because you can clearly see what the team's expected goals and also individual shots and player, which is quite interesting as well. You can use that for maybe like player shot on targets and stuff like that if that's the thing you bet on. So obviously here you see Brentford drawing with United. This was back in March 24. So you'd think, oh wow, okay, that must have been a close game, right? But if you look at the expected goals, actually Brentford generated 3.29, whereas United only created 0.59. If you look at the heat map or the shot map, you can see United got absolutely bombarded with shots.
Yeah.
And United managed to score. It was quite late on a break. Brentford managed to equalise late on. But again, this kind of is a clear example that you shouldn't just look at the end result. You should look at underlying numbers within. So, for example, like I'll show you some of these shots, right? So, for example, this shot here, Bruno had a shot outside the area. So, 0.03 basically means there's a 3% chance of that shot coming in. So if someone was going to take 100 shots of these, 3 of them would have gone in.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, we also have expected goals on target. So this is basically showing the quality of the shot. So XG is of you hitting the ball, like your positioning basically on average. If you have 100 people taking 100 professionals taking a hit from that particular position, then you can expect the goal to be this much. But this is like also the quality of the shot. So here it means that there's an 18% chance. So Bruno, obviously, he's got really good strike from range, right? So this has been kind of upgraded. This is not really shown in the total numbers, but it's quite interesting to look at when you're looking at shots, because there could be some shots, for example, let's find like a poorly shot. It might take a bit. This Bruno's a bad example, right? Again, like Bruno shows how good his quality of shots are, right? Because any other player will have like a 2% chance, but he's had a real good execution of the shot, I'd say.
Yeah.
So yeah, for example, one close range here, I'd say Lewis Potter 0.27 from a corner. Again, it kind of judges if it's like a header, if it's from a corner, set piece, how many defenders kind of in front of you. Some of the models account for that. So it's really a powerful statistic. The one thing I'd say is probably its downfall is it only registered an actual shot. So, for example, if I'm through or a player is through on goal 101, but he doesn't actually hit the ball, then there's no XG, right? But obviously that's a really good opportunity. So sometimes when you watch a game, you might need to add that for yourself as add it to your numbers, right? Because it's a really good opportunity, but he hasn't taken a shot for whatever reason. Maybe he slipped, maybe the goalkeeper came in and scooped it underneath before he had a shot. But obviously that's like a really good opportunity.
Yeah, it's obviously not a cast iron metric, but it's still a very, very solid and reliable when it comes to. And all of those little circles, the little red circles, and there were many, many more than there were white circles in there. But of course, the Brentford
as always
XG is calculated by adding up the XG from all of those individual shots to come up with the overall team's XG. So really delve in and look at the XG, not just what they're creating, but their XGA, the expected goals being created against them, right? So a really good example is, let's suppose you've got Chelsea who keep 2 clean sheets in a row, but the expected goals in those 2 games for the opposition was 1.2 and 1.6. Looks like they've been very lucky to keep 2 clean sheets there, and most likely you can expect that they will start shipping goals. So you can use those figures and those numbers to your advantage in that way against the side as well as for them. So that's XG. Again, FOTMob, Lucas mentioned it, really great app. Again, we're not affiliated to it, but would highly recommend downloading it, because in terms of your scores apps, it's the only one that allows you to zero in on each individual attempt through the XG, as far as I'm aware. Maybe there are a few others.
Yeah.
Do it,
one thing worth noting as well on football, you can look at the expected goals table. So basically, this means if points were awarded based on how many XG you won by, basically it will give you like relative points.
Yeah.
So this is a good way to understand who's kind of potentially should be higher in the table than they should have if chances went their way. And again, this is a good way to identify potential value, right? So, for example, Forest last season, I always said it, they're going to fall off because they were high up in the table, but on expected points, they were way lower, like maybe even 15th. So that's something to be mindful. And these things
eventually catch up with them, don't they?
Yep. And it did, right? they were third and they finished seventh, right? And
Yep. Cool. So there you have it. There's the XG discussion concluded. As I say, FOTMob, spelled FOTMOB, would highly recommend downloading that and looking into all other tools you can use at your disposal to help you with the XG metric, because it should certainly form a key part of your betting strategy. And talking about your betting strategy, that concludes our 6-pack of episodes ahead of making sure that your strategy is refined for the 2025 season. Stay tuned for more strategy episodes moving forward, and of course stay tuned for those Premier League weekly episodes that we'll be running. I think we're also going to look at doing a preview predictions show, which will be coming in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that one, because I'm sure there'll be some outrageous starts in there. But for now, it's over and out.
Cheers.